just to put a bow on the Belichick thing, because it's been so long, people forget stuff. I don't think people remember, realize, or appreciate how important the Bledsoe-Brady decision was in 2001, where he seemed insane when Bledsoe had just gotten this $100 million contract. Bledsoe's ready to come back. Most people in the media are like, oh, he's definitely getting his job back. But yet, and I was in the minority, but I was like, Brady's playing. Why would we get rid of Brady? He's got it. Let's keep going. And Belichick's like, fuck it. I'm not benching Brady. Brady's still my QB. I don't think people appreciated what a difficult decision that was, but for him, not difficult at all. You know him. Like, were you surprised? You're working for the Raiders at that point. You must not have been surprised at all that he was like, yeah, fuck it. We're sticking with Brady.
Yeah, I think that's when you learn that there was a connection between Brady and the team, that you couldn't break that connection. Like, that wasn't a hard decision. I think in everybody's career, there's a Hall of Fame decision that you have to make, right? I mean, Kraft, Kraft made a Hall of Fame decision when I thought Kraft today at the press conference made a really, really smart statement that most of the owners wouldn't have paid attention to. Josh Harris probably didn't. But he said, I was a new owner and I didn't really know what it took. And I listened, I'm paraphrasing, and I didn't hire with my gut the guy I wanted to hire. And it took me 2 years to stop listening to people. I think if David Tepper or Josh Harris listened to that press conference, that was the whole essence of the press conference.
Well, and by the way, he was talking about he hired Pete Carroll when he really wanted to hire Belichick, and he didn't stick with his gut because everyone's like, you got to hire Pete Carroll.
Because Drew Bledsoe's agent told him that Bill's a bad guy and blah, blah, blah. It was 1,000 people. I mean, go back to read the Ian O'Connor back page of the New York Post. I mean, when Kraft hired Belichick, that was a Hall of Fame decision. He belongs in the Hall of Fame for it, because that was a Hall of Fame decision that he got roasted over, that he got lambasted over. And now his franchise is worth $8 billion and he paid. So I think for Bill, there's certain times where you got to make that hard call. But that one with Brady, I think and I think it was Brady just connected with the team, just like Mac Jones can't connect with the team.
Right.
And
just like how Flacco's connecting with the Browns in a way, like it doesn't make sense, but we know it's happening.
And Watson really doesn't connect that well.
Yeah.
I mean, so there is that. And I think that Bill, when you look back on his career, that Hall of Fame decision is what propelled them to then go and play connected like they did, because that team that beat the Rams and beat us in the Tuck game wasn't the most talented team.
No.
By far.
You didn't like Jermaine Wiggins? You didn't like Jermaine Wiggins as a 3rd and 3 pass receiver?
But eventually they got better. But that structure allowed him to build his program.
So when do you think, what stretch of this Pats run did it become clear that he had a chance to become the best coach of all time to you?
Well, I think when he won them back to back, when he won those back to back ones, and for me, he was always the best coach. I still have the notebook here when I gave it to John Shaw and said you should hire. I literally have a notebook that when John Shaw hired me to put together what it took to be a great coach, the notebook says either hire Bill Belichick or hire Nick Saban. He said, I can't hire Nick Saban. I just had Rich Brooks. He's a coach from Oregon. And Belichick's toxic. You can't hire him. So I knew he was always going to be a great coach. And I'm not saying that egotistically, but I knew it.
Well, because you worked with him and Saban in Cleveland. So you run under the hood with them.
There's nobody like them. There's nobody like either one of them. And they're truly Oscar and Felix. They're completely from different worlds, but they come together and they have such mutual respect for one another that they exchange ideas and it works. So, I think after he won that second Super Bowl in a row, the ability to recreate his team is remarkable.
Yeah, you and I have been doing podcasts for a long time. The thing you always said about him that I love, that I just brazenly stole for the rest of the time I knew you, was how he didn't have a philosophy or a structure or like some sort of system. He was not a system guy. His system was who's on my team this year? What's the best way we can compete with the guys I have this year? And then if you just put him on another team, he'd be like, oh, who's on this team? All right, we'll play this way. And the fact that, what do you think? 99% of coaches don't seem to understand that.
Yeah, exactly
Because
right.
just about everybody's like, here's my system, here's my philosophy. I felt that way with McVay this year. McVay looked at the Rams, he's like, oh, all right, here's my team. And he just figured we're gonna do, I have two really good receivers. Oh shit, now I have this awesome running back. And he just kind of figured it out on the fly. But next year could have been, but why don't most coaches think that way?
Because they're all system based. They're all about their system. Their system's going to work. This is what's going to work. We got to run our system. Our system will work. We got to get the players to operate within the system. And so where Belichick starts very simplistically, right? His whole thing is simplistically decomplicated. So what he does is his system. What he installs is a base system, and then based on the week they have to play a team, it becomes complex. Where if you start complex, you can't get simple.
Yeah.
Nobody understands it. But if you start simple, you can become complex that week, and then you change it back the other way. And then you make the other team play left-handed. I mean, think about it. You know, one of the strengths of the team should have been their pass rush, but they never could get ahead in the game to rush.
Right.
They could never get ahead in the game to rush. So he knew this summer his team was upside down because the strength of the team was the ability to maybe create turnovers with their multiple fronts, their multiple looks, and yet they couldn't get points to start the game with. So those are the hard ones. Again, it goes back to production and design. You know, when those two things are together, and he does a really good job of that. Here's what we want to do. It's the off season. It's like right now. This is what we have to do to win. If you're in the Atlanta Falcons organization or you're somewhere, there has to be a strategy on what it's going to take to win the division you're in. And that strategy is players and plays.
Steve Kerr's in a little bit of a similar situation right now with the Warriors and he's not a system guy, but sometimes your collection of players doesn't work. And how do you solve it? And how do you put the right people? Like, they don't have enough size. They don't have the same kind of length and athleticism that they used to. They have this Curry thing where he bounces off. It's like, how do you fix this? And sometimes you can't. And there's been some interesting Belichick seasons where he just couldn't fix it. Like, he couldn't fix the offense this year because it was impossible to fix. We had that, the Matt Castle year when that team was pretty good. They end up going, I think, 11-5. But there was a lot of talent on that team. But fundamentally, the best player in the team was still probably Randy Moss, but he had Matt Castle as his QB. So I can fix this, but I can't really rig it. Watching him problem solve on the fly, there was the year Troy Brown was a nickelback on the Super Bowl team. It's like, we need another defensive back. Right. That was kind of my favorite part of the Belichick. Like, he would just like scotch tape and just like thumbtacks and just kind of, this is what we need to do this week. And I'll miss that the most, I think.